The Grand Amphitheater of the Galactic Council hummed with tension as representatives from 47 civilizations gathered for an emergency session. The crystalline walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, translating emotions and thoughts across species barriers. At the center of the chamber, Ambassador Zethkri of the ancient Viridian Empire stood before the assembly, his forearms gesturing with practiced authority. Honored delegates, Zethkri began, his voice carrying through the chamber's acoustic enhancement system. We face an unprecedented situation. The species known as humans have achieved faster than light travel. A ripple of dismissive sounds echoed through the chamber. The insectoid hive queen Xsestera clicked her mandibles in amusement, while the gaseous ethereals flickered with colors that translated to mild curiosity. Only a few species maintained respectful silence. They call themselves Homo sapiens, Zethkri continued, projecting a hologram of Earth into the center of the amphitheater. The blue-green world rotated slowly, its single moon casting shadows across continents. They evolved on this unremarkable world in what they call the Milky Way galaxy's outer spiral arm. Their technological advancement has been rapid. Commander Vextal of the Dominion Fleet, a towering reptilian with scales that shifted from deep purple to aggressive crimson, rose from his delegation seat. Zethkri, why waste the Council's time with another primitive species? How long have they possessed FTL capability? A few cycles? A decade at most? 3 solar rotations, Zethkri replied quietly. The chamber erupted in laughter. The crystalline resonance chimed in harmonic patterns that conveyed their amusement, while the aquatic depths dwellers released bubbles that formed mocking geometric shapes in their environmental suits. Vextal's scales brightened to orange, the Dominion equivalent of incredulous humor. 3 rotations? Commander, my youngest offspring has been using faster-than-light communication longer than that. What possible threat could they pose? Zethkri's aged features remained stoic. As one of the eldest species in known space, the Viridians had witnessed the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. Their longevity bred patience, but also a wisdom that younger species often ignored. I urge caution. Their development patterns are unusual. Unusual how? Queen Xsestera's compound eyes fixed on the hologram. They appear to be standard carbon-based bipeds. Unremarkable bone density, limited physical capabilities, no natural weapons, no specialized environmental adaptations. They should have been extinct within a few million years of achieving sentience. The Viridian ambassador manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on various regions of Earth. Images flashed showing human cities, their transportation networks, industrial complexes, and orbital installations. They achieved nuclear fission within 700 rotations of discovering electricity. They went from their first powered flight to orbital spaceflight in less than 70 rotations. A few delegates shifted uncomfortably. The resonance harmonic laughter died to a questioning tone. Furthermore, Zethkri continued, they have engaged in continuous warfare throughout their recorded history. Not tribal skirmishes or resource conflicts, but organized, strategic warfare involving their entire population centers. Primitives fighting primitives, scoffed Admiral Korthal of the Hegemony. His cybernetic enhancements flickered with data streams as he processed tactical information. Their weapons are crude plasma projectors and chemical explosives. A single Dominion dreadnought could sterilize their entire world. Zethkri's 4 eyes focused on the Admiral with unusual intensity. They detonated fusion weapons on their own world. For testing purposes. The chamber fell silent. Even the ethereals stopped their constant color shifting. Impossible, whispered Representative Kolnara of the Synthesis Collective. Her biomechanical form processed the claim through multiple analytical matrices. No species deliberately uses fusion weapons on their homeworld after achieving spaceflight. The radiation alone would compromise their biosphere for generations. Yet they did. Multiple times. In their oceans, underground, in their atmosphere. The hologram shifted to show massive mushroom clouds rising over barren landscapes. They measured the destructive capacity and improved the designs. Vextal's scales had shifted to a deep blue, indicating confusion mixed with unease. What manner of species destroys its own habitat for experimental data? A species, Zethkri said slowly, that views survival as something to be earned through adaptation rather than guaranteed through evolution. The ancient keeper Muldra of the Eternal Archive, rarely seen outside their crystalline libraries, materialized at their delegation point. Their form was barely visible, more energy than matter, accumulated knowledge given semi-corporeal shape. When the keepers spoke, the galaxy listened. Viridian, Muldra's voice resonated directly in each delegate's consciousness, bypassing language entirely. What do your analysis matrices conclude about their expansion probability? Zeth Kree hesitated. The Viridian Empire had survived longer than any other civilization in known space precisely because they excelled at recognizing patterns others missed. If their current development curve continues unchanged, they will achieve galactic range capability within 50 rotations. 50 rotations? Vextal was on his feet again. That's impossible. It took the Dominion 3,000 rotations to achieve true galactic presence, and we had the benefit of conquered territories and enslaved populations for resource extraction. The humans have something we did not, Zeth Kree replied. They reproduce exponentially under stress, not mathematically. When their populations face extinction events, they don't reduce birth rates to conserve resources. They increase them. Queen Exesestera's antennae twitched with agitation. That makes no evolutionary sense. Overpopulation leads to resource depletion and collapse. Unless, the keeper interjected, the species adapts by expanding outward rather than limiting growth. Viridian, show them the population projection. The hologram shifted to display a complex mathematical model. Numbers cascaded through three-dimensional space, showing exponential curves that climbed beyond the display's capacity to render. Based on their historical patterns, Zeth Kree explained, humans respond to resource limitations not by reducing consumption but by finding new resources. When they depleted their landmasses, they developed ocean vessels. When they exhausted surface materials, they tunneled deeper. When their atmosphere became polluted, they built habitation beyond it. And now they have FTL capability, Muldra observed. Representative Kolnara's mechanical components clicked rapidly as she processed scenarios. Even if their expansion follows the most aggressive models, they're still a single-world species. Any established civilization could eliminate them before they become a significant presence. Admiral Korthal nodded agreement. The hegemony maintains surveillance networks throughout 17 sectors. If they attempt expansion into our territories, we would detect and neutralize them long before they could establish meaningful colonies. Would you? Zeth Kree manipulated the display again. Observe their military doctrine. The hologram showed human conflicts throughout their history. Ancient battles with primitive weapons evolved into massive industrial wars involving millions of participants. The progression was relentless. Better weapons, larger armies, more efficient methods of destruction. They don't fight for territory or resources alone, Zeth Kree explained. They fight for concepts. Ideas. Belief systems. They will sacrifice millions of their own population to preserve abstract principles. Fanaticism, Vextal dismissed. Religious extremism is common among primitive species. They'll outgrow it as they mature. Will they? The ancient Viridian's voice carried centuries of accumulated wisdom. They fought a global war that lasted 6 rotations and killed over 50 million of their population. The cause? One faction believed another faction was genetically inferior. Even the usually dismissive Dominion delegation fell quiet. They won that conflict, Zeth Kree continued, then immediately entered a period of ideological confrontation with their former allies. For 45 rotations, they maintained enough nuclear weapons to exterminate their own species hundreds of times over. Not as a deterrent against external threats, but against each other. The synthesis collective representatives' biomechanical form processed this information with visible strain. No rational species maintains civilization-ending weapons against members of their own species. The risk-to-benefit analysis doesn't support such behavior. Rational, Muldra repeated, their energy form pulsing with what might have been amusement. Define rational for a species that considers individual death acceptable if it preserves group survival, yet simultaneously considers group sacrifice acceptable if it preserves individual freedom. Silence stretched through the chamber as delegates struggled to process the paradox. Zethkri activated another section of the holographic display. Their first faster-than-light vessel was constructed not by their governments, but by a private organization. They achieved interstellar capability through individual initiative rather than collective resources. Impossible, Admiral Korthal stated flatly. FTL technology requires the industrial capacity of entire civilizations. No individual or small group possesses sufficient resources. Unless, the Keeper observed, the individual has access to the accumulated resources of their entire species through voluntary exchange rather than central planning. The implications rippled through the assembly. Most galactic civilizations achieved FTL through massive governmental programs that mobilized entire worlds. The concept of individuals accessing equivalent resources through economic systems rather than political ones was alien to their experience. Queen Exesthera's compound eyes reflected the holographic data streams. If individuals can achieve what previously required civilizational resources, their expansion potential isn't limited by governmental decision-making processes. Correct, Zethkri confirmed. Their expansion won't follow traditional colonial patterns. It will be chaotic, unpredictable, and rapid. Vextal's scales had shifted through several color patterns before settling on a deep amber that indicated serious concern. How rapid? Their first interstellar mission launched 3 rotations ago. Their second launched 2 rotations ago. Their third, fourth, and fifth launched within the last rotation. The hologram showed trajectories extending from Earth's solar system toward various star clusters. The intervals are decreasing exponentially. The chamber erupted in urgent conversations as delegates consulted their analysis systems. The resonance harmonic patterns became discordant with alarm, while the ethereals flickered through rapid color sequences that indicated elevated stress responses. Admiral Korthal was accessing real-time data through his cybernetic implants. Hegemony sensors have detected FTL signatures in the Kepler 442 system. We classified them as sensor anomalies because the energy patterns were too small to represent conventional starship drives. How small? Muldra inquired. Approximately 15% of minimum viable FTL vessel displacement, the Admiral replied, his mechanical voice betraying confusion. We assumed the readings indicated equipment malfunction. Zethkri's expression remained grave. Show them the human vessel specifications. The hologram shifted to display technical schematics of the human ships. They were impossibly compact compared to standard galactic designs, with most internal volume dedicated to propulsion and life support rather than crew quarters or cargo capacity. They don't build ships for comfort or extended deployment, Zethkri explained. They build them for speed and efficiency. Their crews accept minimal life support and cramped conditions in exchange for rapid transit capability. Representative Kolnara's analytical systems were working at maximum capacity. These designs violate standard safety protocols. The radiation exposure alone should be lethal for organic life forms. It is, the Viridian confirmed. Human interstellar crews have life expectancies of approximately 8 to 12 rotations due to cumulative radiation damage. They consider this an acceptable trade-off. The statement hung in the air like a physical weight. The concept of deliberately accepting lethal working conditions was beyond most species' comprehension. They're building disposable starships crewed by volunteers willing to die, Queen Exesthera said slowly, her mandibles clicking with agitation. What kind of species produces individuals willing to sacrifice themselves for exploration? Keeper Muldra's energy form pulsed with ancient knowledge. A species that has spent its entire evolutionary history in competition not just with its environment, but with itself. They don't explore space because they've mastered their world. They explore space because they've never stopped fighting for survival. Vextal's scales had deepened to near black, the Dominion expression of fundamental unease. If they're willing to accept lethal radiation exposure for exploration missions, what would they accept for warfare? The question echoed through the chamber, and delegates began to truly understand why the Viridian Empire had called this emergency session. Admiral Korthal was receiving continuous data streams through his neural interfaces. His cybernetic components flickered with increasing urgency. Hegemony deep space monitors are detecting FTL signatures in 17 different systems, all within the last rotation period. 17? Zethkri's forearms gestured in patterns that conveyed deep concern. That's accelerated beyond our projections. It's not random exploration, Representative Kulnara announced, her biomechanical analysis systems processing the trajectory data. They're following a systematic expansion pattern that maximizes resource discovery while maintaining communication relays. The Keeper's form brightened with interest. Viridian, does your species' historical analysis suggest explanation for such rapid systematic expansion? Zethkri hesitated before responding. There's precedent. Approximately 8,000 rotations ago, humans faced what they call an ice age, a climate change event that threatened their species with extinction. Rather than adapting their behavior to survive in the changed environment, they developed technologies to change the environment itself. Environmental modification is common among developing species, Vextal observed. They didn't modify their local environment, Zethkri clarified. They spread across their entire planet, adapting each regional environment to support their biology rather than adapting their biology to suit regional environments. The implications rippled through the assembly again. Most species either adapted biologically to new environments or modified small areas to match their biological needs. The concept of systematically terraforming an entire world was almost incomprehensible. Now they're approaching space expansion with the same methodology, the ancient Viridian continued. They're not looking for worlds that can support their biology. They're looking for worlds they can modify to support their biology. Queen XSSthera's antennae twitched rapidly. The energy requirements for planetary environmental modification are enormous. Even if they locate suitable candidates, they lack the industrial infrastructure for large-scale terraforming. Do they? Muldra's question carried undertones of knowledge that stretched across geological ages. Show them the asteroid mining data. The hologram shifted to display human activities in their home system. Massive industrial operations surrounded previously barren asteroids, extracting raw materials at rates that defied standard efficiency calculations. They've industrialized their asteroid belt, Admiral Korthal said, his mechanical voice carrying notes of disbelief. The material extraction rates exceed anything in hegemony databases. How? Representative Kulnara demanded. Asteroid mining requires enormous initial investments with minimal short-term returns. No rational economic system supports such enterprises. Zethkri's expression grew even more grave. They're not mining asteroids for economic returns. They're mining them for survival preparation. Survival against what threat? Vextal's scale shifted through multiple color patterns, indicating rapid emotional transitions. Extinction, the Keeper answered. They've identified 17 different scenarios that could eliminate their species if they remain confined to a single world. Asteroid impact, stellar instability, supervolcanic eruption, pandemic disease, nuclear warfare, artificial intelligence uprising, climate change, resource depletion. Artificial intelligence uprising? Admiral Korthal interrupted, his cybernetic enhancements flickering with alarm codes. They've created artificial intelligence systems that exceed their own cognitive capabilities in specific domains, Zethkri confirmed. Rather than integrating with these systems, they maintain independence and prepare for the possibility that the artificial intelligences might attempt to eliminate them. The chamber fell silent as delegates processed this information. Most galactic civilizations either avoided artificial intelligence entirely or achieved symbiotic integration. The concept of deliberately developing potentially hostile artificial intelligence while simultaneously preparing for war against it was beyond their experience. Representative Kulnara's biomechanical form was cycling through analysis patterns at maximum speed. They're preparing for extinction scenarios that they're simultaneously creating themselves? Correct, Zethkri confirmed. They view this as prudent planning rather than paradoxical behavior. Keeper Muldra's energy form pulsed with what might have been admiration. A species that prepares for every possibility, including possibilities they create themselves. Fascinating adaptation to universal uncertainty. Vextal's scales had stabilized at a deep purple that indicated profound unease mixed with respect. If they're expanding through space as preparation for extinction scenarios rather than resource acquisition, traditional diplomatic approaches may be ineffective. Why? Queen XSS Thera asked. Because, Admiral Korthal answered, his cybernetic voice processing tactical implications, species expanding for resources can be negotiated with through resource sharing agreements. Species expanding for survival cannot be deterred through traditional incentives. The logic rippled through the assembly like a shock wave. Every galactic civilization had experience negotiating with species that wanted territory, resources, trade advantages, or political influence. None had experience with species that wanted insurance against universal entropy. What do they want from galactic civilization? Representative Kolnara asked. Unknown, Zethkri admitted. They haven't attempted communication with any known species. They appear to be unaware that galactic civilization exists. Impossible, Vextal stated. Any species developing FTL capability would detect subspace communication networks within their first few light-years of expansion. They're not using subspace communications, Admiral Korthal reported, consulting real-time intelligence data. They're using quantum entanglement communication systems. The chamber erupted in urgent conversations. Quantum entanglement communication was theoretically possible but practically impossible to implement across interstellar distances. The energy requirements and technological precision needed exceeded the capabilities of most galactic civilizations. How advanced is their quantum communication network? Muldra inquired. Admiral Korthal's cybernetic enhancements processed incoming data streams. Hegemony analysis suggests they've established instantaneous communication links across at least 12 star systems. The quantum entanglement matrices appear to be self-replicating and self-maintaining. Self-replicating quantum communication systems, Representative Kolnara said slowly. That's beyond theoretical possibility. The quantum coherence requirements alone should make such systems impossible to maintain across interstellar distances. Yet they exist, the Keeper observed. Perhaps their approach to physics differs from galactic standard methodologies. Zethkri activated another section of the holographic display. Human scientific methodology is based on practical experimentation rather than theoretical prediction. They test hypotheses through direct manipulation rather than mathematical modeling. Direct manipulation of quantum systems? Vextal's scales flickered with alarm. That's incredibly dangerous. Quantum experiments could destabilize local spacetime if conducted incorrectly. They conduct them anyway, Zethkri confirmed. Human scientific philosophy prioritizes empirical results over theoretical safety. The implications were staggering. Most galactic civilizations developed physics through careful theoretical modeling followed by limited experimentation. The concept of conducting potentially dangerous quantum experiments based on practical curiosity rather than theoretical prediction suggested either incredible recklessness or incredible confidence. Or incredible adaptability, Muldra observed, apparently reading the delegate's thoughts. A species that survived by adapting to any environment would naturally extend that adaptation to natural laws themselves. Queen XSS Thera's compound eyes reflected the holographic data in fractal patterns. Are you suggesting they're adapting physics to suit their needs rather than adapting their technology to suit physics? I'm suggesting, the ancient keeper replied, that a species which spent its evolutionary history changing environments rather than adapting to them would naturally approach universal laws the same way. Admiral Korthal was receiving priority communications through his neural interfaces. His mechanical voice carried unusual urgency. Hegemony Command is reporting quantum anomalies in sectors adjacent to human expansion vectors. Local spacetime measurements are fluctuating beyond normal parameters. Fluctuating how? Representative Kolnara demanded. Faster-than-light transit times are decreasing. Ships that should require 10 standard time units for specific jumps are completing them in 7 or 8 units. The Admiral's cybernetic components flickered with alarm codes. It's as if local space is becoming more cooperative. Silence stretched through the chamber as the implications became clear. If humans were somehow modifying the fundamental properties of spacetime to improve FTL efficiency, their expansion capability was beyond anything previously encountered. Zethkri's ancient features reflected centuries of accumulated wisdom and growing concern. The pattern is consistent with their historical behavior. They don't accept limitations. They find ways to change the limitations themselves. That's impossible, Vextal protested, though his scales had shifted to colors indicating uncertainty rather than conviction. Universal physical laws cannot be modified by individual species. Can't they? Muldra's energy form pulsed with ancient knowledge. The predecessor species modified gravitational constants in local space clusters. The void-touched learned to manipulate time flow rates. The ghostwalkers achieved partial dimensional phasing. Those species had millions of years of development and the accumulated knowledge of multiple galactic civilizations, Queen Xsthera pointed out. Humans have had interstellar capability for 3 rotations. Yet they're achieving similar results through different methodologies, the Keeper observed. Perhaps advancement isn't always linear or predictable. Admiral Corthell was consulting tactical databases through his cybernetic systems. If humans can modify local spacetime properties to improve FTL efficiency, traditional military responses may be inadequate. Our strategic planning assumes consistent physics across operational theaters. What are you recommending? Vextal asked. Immediate diplomatic contact, the Admiral replied without hesitation. If we cannot predict their capabilities or intentions through conventional analysis, direct communication becomes essential. Representative Kolnara's biomechanical forms cycle through multiple analysis patterns. Diplomatic contact with a species that appears unaware of galactic civilization? How do we establish communication protocols with entities that don't use standard subspace frequencies? Very carefully, Zethkri answered. And soon. Because while we've been debating their expansion patterns, they've been expanding. The hologram updated with real-time data, showing new FTL signatures appearing across multiple sectors. The expansion pattern had accelerated beyond exponential into something approaching viral spread. How many systems? Muldra inquired. Admiral Corthal's mechanical voice carried notes of disbelief. 43 confirmed. 12 more pending verification. All within the last half-rotation period. The chamber fell silent as delegates processed the magnitude of human expansion. Most galactic civilizations required centuries to establish presence in 43 systems. Humans had achieved it in less time than it took most species to plan a single interstellar mission. The Council must vote, Zethkri announced. Do we attempt immediate diplomatic contact with this species, or do we wait and observe? What does Viridian wisdom suggest? Queen Xsthera asked. The ancient ambassador's forearms gestured in patterns that conveyed deep uncertainty mixed with profound respect. In 40,000 years of galactic observation, my species has learned one constant truth: the universe always produces surprises. Humans appear to be surprise incarnate. Is that dangerous? Vextal asked. Unknown, Zethkri admitted. But, historically, species that surprise the universe tend to survive longer than species that follow predictable patterns. Keeper Muldra's energy form brightened with what might have been anticipation. Then, perhaps the question isn't whether humans will change the galaxy. Perhaps the question is how much change we're prepared to accept. The vote was called, and the galaxy's fate hung in the balance of species that had never imagined they would need to make such a decision. Captain Sarachan floated in the cramped command module of the UES Persistence, watching her radiation exposure counter tick steadily upward. The numbers didn't bother her anymore. After 18 months of deep space exploration, she'd accepted that returning to Earth was unlikely. What mattered now was completing the mission. Contact bearing 27 Mark 15, reported Navigation Officer Marcus Rodriguez, his voice crackling through the ship's deteriorating communication system. Artificial construction confirmed. Sarah pushed herself toward the observation port, magnetic boots clicking against the deck plating. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum, she could see something that made her breath catch. A massive structure hung in the darkness between stars, its surfaces covered with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Size estimate, she asked. Approximately 15 kilometers in diameter, Rodriguez replied. Construction appears to be crystalline, possibly biomechanical hybrid technology. Captain, I'm reading energy signatures that don't match any known physics. Sarah activated the ship's long-range quantum communicator, knowing the transmission would reach Earth instantaneously despite the impossible distance. Earth control, this is persistence. We've located what appears to be an alien megastructure in the Vega system. Recommend immediate analysis and response preparation. The reply came back within seconds, a testament to human quantum communication efficiency that even the crew still found remarkable. Acknowledged, persistence. Maintain observation distance. Do not attempt contact without authorization. Copy that, Control. Sarah studied the alien structure through enhanced imaging systems. The geometric patterns seemed to shift and change as she watched, creating optical illusions that made her eyes water. Rodriguez, are you getting any communication signals from that thing? Negative on conventional frequencies. But, Captain, I'm detecting something unusual in the quantum foam around the structure. It's like space itself is being modified somehow. Sarah frowned. Human quantum physicists had theorized about large-scale spacetime manipulation, but their mathematics suggested it would require energy equivalent to stellar output. Modified how? FTL efficiency in the local area appears to be increased by approximately 30%. Transit times should be reduced, power requirements lowered. Rodriguez paused, double-checking his instruments. Captain, this technology could revolutionize interstellar travel. Or it could be a trap, Sarah replied grimly. Human history was full of technologies that seemed beneficial before revealing hidden dangers. Maintain distance and continue recording. I want every sensor focused on that structure. Light years away, the Galactic Council had reached its decision. By a narrow margin, they had voted to attempt diplomatic contact with humanity before taking more aggressive measures. The task fell to the Viridian Empire, whose experience with unpredictable species made them the logical choice for first contact. Ambassador Zethkri stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Eternal Wisdom, watching human space through sensors that could detect quantum fluctuations across multiple dimensions. What he saw confirmed his worst fears and exceeded his wildest projections. Status report, he requested. Human expansion has accelerated beyond exponential parameters, reported Science Officer Veltar, her young voice carrying notes of disbelief. They've established presence in 74 systems within the last 2 rotations. 74? Zethkri's forearms gestured in patterns that conveyed profound shock. Even his most pessimistic projections hadn't suggested such rapid expansion. How is that possible? They're not following conventional colonization patterns, Veltar explained, manipulating holographic displays that showed human activity across multiple star systems. Instead of establishing permanent settlements, they're creating mobile industrial platforms that harvest resources and move on to the next system. Resource harvesting expeditions, Zethkri mused. That's consistent with their survival-focused expansion philosophy. No sir, Veltar corrected. They're not harvesting for resources. They're harvesting to build infrastructure. The distinction was significant. Resource harvesting suggested scarcity-driven expansion. Infrastructure construction suggested preparation for something much larger. Show me, Zethkri commanded. The holographic display shifted to show human activities in detail. Massive industrial ships moved through asteroid fields like mechanical locusts, consuming raw materials and producing finished components at rates that defied conventional efficiency calculations. The components weren't being transported back to human worlds, they were being assembled into new structures in deep space. Communication relays, Veltar identified. Quantum communication nodes with ranges exceeding anything in galactic databases. They're building a network that spans multiple sectors. For what purpose? Unknown. But the energy requirements suggest they're preparing to support massive data transmission loads. Zethkri studied the patterns, his ancient mind processing implications that younger species might miss. They're not building an empire. They're building a nervous system. Sir? Each human colony operates independently, but they're all connected through instantaneous communication networks. Like neurons in a brain. The ambassador's expression grew thoughtful. Individual cells with specialized functions, connected to a greater consciousness. That's impossible, Veltar protested. No species maintains unified consciousness across interstellar distances. The coordination requirements alone would overwhelm any central authority. What if there is no central authority? Seth Cree asked. What if each colony makes independent decisions while sharing information instantaneously with all other colonies? The young science officer's bioluminescent patches flickered with confusion. That would create chaos. No species can maintain civilization without hierarchical organization. Can't they? The ancient Viridian activated historical databases. Humans evolved as tribal hunters on their homeworld. Their basic social unit was small groups of individuals cooperating without formal hierarchy. Perhaps they've simply scaled that organization model to galactic proportions. A galactic-scale tribal organization? Veltar's voice carried notes of incredulity. The complexity management would be impossible. For us, Seth Cree agreed. But, we evolved from different pressures. Our ancestors achieved civilization through careful planning and resource allocation. Human ancestors achieved civilization through improvisation and adaptation. On the observation screen, human industrial activities continued their relentless pace. New quantum communication nodes appeared hourly, expanding the network faster than the Viridian sensors could track. Ambassador, Communications Officer Trendak announced, we're receiving a transmission from the Council. High priority. Put it through. The holographic display shifted to show Admiral Corthal's mechanical features, his cybernetic enhancements flickering with urgent data streams. Seth Cree, we have a situation. Human expansion has exceeded our containment projections. How severely? They've entered Dominion space. Seth Cree's four eyes focused with laser intensity. Military response? Unknown. Commander Vextal has gone silent. His battle group was investigating human activities in the Proxima sector. We lost contact 6 hours ago. Lost contact with a Dominion battle group? Veltar gasped. Dominion military units were among the most powerful in known space, capable of destroying entire worlds if necessary. Prepare for immediate transit to the Proxima sector, Seth Cree ordered. Maximum speed. Sir, that will take us directly through human expansion zones, Trendak warned. We could encounter their vessels. Exactly, the ambassador replied grimly. It's time we learned what happened to Commander Vextal. The Eternal Wisdom engaged its faster-than-light drives, crossing interstellar space in hours rather than days. As they approached the Proxima sector, their sensors began detecting anomalies that made Veltar question her understanding of physics. Sir, spacetime metrics in this region are fluctuating beyond normal parameters, she reported. FTL efficiency has increased by nearly 40%. Human modifications? Unknown. But, the quantum foam structure has been altered somehow. It's like someone has fine-tuned local physics for optimal faster-than-light travel. Find Commander Vextal's battle group, Seth Cree commanded. Scanning. Sir, I'm detecting Dominion energy signatures approximately 10 million kilometers from the primary star. But, they're unusual. Unusual how? The ships appear to be intact, but they're not moving. And, I'm reading massive human industrial activity in the same area. The holographic display shifted to show the scene. 5 massive Dominion dreadnoughts hung motionless in space, their weapons powered down and their communication systems silent. Surrounding them were dozens of human vessels, but these weren't military ships. They appeared to be industrial platforms and construction vehicles. Are the Dominion ships damaged? Seth Cree asked. Negative. All systems appear functional. They're just not responding. Take us closer. Carefully. As the Eternal Wisdom approached, the details became clearer and more disturbing. The human vessels were constructing something around the Dominion dreadnoughts, a framework of quantum communication nodes and sensor arrays that enveloped each military ship like a technological cocoon. They're building cages, Veltar whispered. No, Seth Cree corrected, studying the construction patterns. They're building translation matrices. Translation matrices? Communication interfaces. They're trying to establish dialogue with the Dominion crews. By surrounding their ships with alien technology? That's an act of war. Before Zethkri could respond, the Eternal Wisdom's communication system activated on its own. A voice spoke in perfect Viridian, despite the impossibility of humans knowing their language. Viridian vessel, this is Captain James Harrison of the Human Exploration Fleet. We apologize for any alarm our activities may have caused. We're attempting to establish communication with the crews of these vessels, who appear to be suffering from a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Zethkri responded cautiously. They arrived with weapons powered and shields raised, apparently expecting conflict. We're trying to explain that we mean no harm, but our translation protocols are having difficulty with their language matrix. Veltar checked her instruments frantically. Sir, how are they communicating with us? We never transmitted our linguistic databases. Unknown, Zethkri replied, then addressed the human captain. Captain Harrison, I am Ambassador Zethkri of the Viridian Empire. Why are your people constructing technological frameworks around Dominion military vessels? Communication enhancement, Ambassador. Their ship's computers use quantum encryption that's interfering with our translation matrices. We're building quantum resonance amplifiers to bridge the communication gap. You're modifying their ships? No, sir. We're building external interfaces that don't require modifications to their technology. We learned early in our space exploration that direct technological integration can be seen as aggressive, so we developed non-invasive communication methods. Zethkri exchanged glances with his crew. The concept of developing non-invasive communication methods suggested humans had experience with species that viewed technological integration as hostile. Who taught you this principle? Experience with our own artificial intelligences, sir. We learned that AI systems interpret unauthorized access as attack behavior, so we developed external communication protocols that don't require system integration. The implications hit Zethkri like a physical blow. Humans had developed non-invasive alien communication protocols based on their experience communicating with hostile artificial intelligences. They were approaching galactic civilizations the same way they approached potentially dangerous AI systems. Captain Harrison, are you aware that you've entered territory claimed by the Dominion Empire? No, sir, we weren't aware these systems were claimed. Our surveys indicated no permanent installations or territorial markers. We're exploring systems that appear uninhabited. The Dominion claims territory based on strategic value rather than settlement, Zethkri explained. Many species maintain territorial claims on systems they don't actively occupy. That's inefficient, Harrison replied after a moment. Why claim resources you're not using? For future development or strategic denial to potential enemies. I see. That explains the hostile response from these vessels. They thought we were invading claimed territory. Weren't you? No, sir. We're looking for systems suitable for terraforming. We don't want inhabited worlds or territories claimed by other species. We prefer to build our own worlds rather than take existing ones. Veltar's bioluminescent patches were flickering with confusion. Sir, they're saying they prefer to create new worlds rather than colonize existing ones? Apparently, Zethkri replied. Captain Harrison, are you saying humans can create habitable worlds? Yes, sir. We've developed terraforming techniques based on our experience modifying Earth's environment. It's more efficient than adapting our biology to suit alien environments. More efficient than biological adaptation? Yes, sir. Biological adaptation is slow and unreliable. Environmental modification is faster and more predictable. Zethkri felt the universe shift around him. Most species adapted to environments through millions of years of evolution or thousands of years of genetic modification. Humans apparently modified environments to suit their biology, then moved to new environments and modified those as well. Captain Harrison, how long does terraforming require? Depends on the planet, sir. Simple atmospheric adjustment can be completed in 50 to 100 years. More complex modifications might take several centuries. Several centuries for planetary environmental modification? Veltar gasped. Yes, ma'am. Is that considered fast or slow by galactic standards? Before anyone could answer, the Dominion dreadnought suddenly came to life. Their communication systems activated, transmitting on standard galactic frequencies. Attention unidentified vessels, Commander Vextal's voice echoed across space, his mechanical translation system giving his words a harsh metallic edge. You will immediately cease your technological modifications and withdraw from Dominion space. Captain Harrison responded immediately. Commander, we're not making modifications to your vessels. We're building external communication interfaces to facilitate dialogue. Our intention is peaceful contact, not technological interference. You have surrounded our battle group with unknown technology. This constitutes an act of war. Sir, with respect, we've surrounded your vessels with translation equipment because your quantum encryption was preventing communication. We're trying to establish peaceful contact. Peaceful contact is irrelevant. You have violated Dominion territory. Commander, Zethkri interrupted, perhaps we should discuss territorial boundaries before escalating to military action. Viridian, Vextal's voice carried notes of relief. Explain this situation. Humans appear to be unaware of galactic territorial conventions, Zethkri explained diplomatically. They've entered systems they believe to be unclaimed. Ignorance of law is not excuse for violation, Vextal replied. They must withdraw immediately. Commander, Harrison interjected, we're willing to withdraw if these systems are claimed territory. But, we'd like to understand the territorial boundaries to avoid future misunderstandings. Territorial boundaries are defined by strategic value, not physical occupation, Vextal explained impatiently. Could you provide maps showing which systems are claimed by various species? Harrison asked. We want to avoid uninhabited systems that are strategically valuable to established civilizations. Maps? Vextal's confusion was audible. Territory is determined by military capability and strategic necessity, not arbitrary boundaries. I see. So territorial claims are dynamic rather than fixed? Of course. Territory expands and contracts based on military strength and strategic requirements. There was a long pause before Harrison responded. Commander, I think we have a fundamental misunderstanding about territorial organization. Human territorial concepts are based on fixed boundaries and permanent ownership. Your system appears to be based on variable claims and military enforcement. Correct. That's remarkably inefficient. How do you conduct long-term planning without fixed territorial boundaries? Zethkri could hear Vextal's scales scraping against his command throne, a sign of extreme agitation. Efficiency is irrelevant compared to security. Fixed boundaries invite attack by showing enemies exactly where your territory ends. But variable boundaries create uncertainty that prevents economic development, Harrison replied. How do you build infrastructure if you don't know which territories you'll control next year? Infrastructure is mobile. Territory is fluid. Mobile infrastructure? Harrison sounded genuinely puzzled. That's incredibly expensive and inefficient. Why not establish permanent settlements and defend them? Because, Vextal replied with forced patience, permanent settlements become targets. Mobile infrastructure can be relocated if threatened. Commander, Harrison said slowly, I think humans and Dominion have fundamentally different approaches to civilization. We build permanent infrastructure and defend it absolutely. You build mobile infrastructure and relocate it when threatened. Correct. That explains your territorial philosophy. If your infrastructure is mobile, territorial boundaries can be flexible. If our infrastructure is permanent, territorial boundaries must be fixed. Zethkri listened to the exchange with growing amazement. Two species with completely different approaches to civilization were discovering their philosophical differences through direct dialogue. It was the kind of breakthrough that diplomatic corps dreamed about but rarely achieved. Perhaps, Zethkri suggested carefully, we should arrange formal discussions between human representatives and the Galactic Council to establish territorial protocols that accommodate different civilization models. Galactic Council? Harrison asked. The governing body that coordinates relations between galactic civilizations, Zethkri explained. How many civilizations are we talking about? 47 member species, with approximately 230 associated civilizations. Silence stretched across space as the humans processed this information. Captain Harrison? Zethkri prompted. Sir, are you saying there are over 200 intelligent species in this galaxy? Yes. Did humans not realize they were entering inhabited space? No, sir. Our surveys indicated no technological signatures beyond our own. We thought we were alone. Veltar's bioluminescent patches were cycling through rapid patterns that indicated severe shock. Sir, they've been expanding through galactic space thinking they were the only intelligent species? Apparently, Zethkri replied. Captain Harrison, how were your surveys conducted? Radio telescope arrays, infrared detection, quantum signature analysis. We looked for signs of industrial activity, artificial energy sources, megastructure construction, anything that would indicate intelligent life. And, you found nothing? Nothing beyond natural phenomena. No radio broadcasts, no artificial light sources, no signs of space-based industry or planetary engineering. Commander Vextal's mechanical voice carried notes of incredulity. Impossible. Dominion industrial activities alone should be detectable across multiple sectors. What kind of industrial activities? Harrison asked. Asteroid mining, stellar engineering, planetary resource extraction, orbital habitat construction. Could you provide examples of the energy signatures these activities produce? There was a pause while Vextal consulted his databases. Quantum fusion signatures ranging from 10 to the 15th to 10 to the 18th watts, depending on the scale of operations. Sir, those energy levels would be detectable across half the galaxy. Are you certain your industrial activities operate at those power levels? Of course. How else would you achieve meaningful resource extraction or construction? Sir, human industrial activities operate at approximately 10 to the 10th to 10 to the 12th watts. We achieve resource extraction through efficiency optimization rather than brute force power application. Zethkri felt the universe shift again. Human industrial activities were operating at power levels 3 to 6 orders of magnitude lower than standard galactic operations. No wonder their surveys hadn't detected galactic civilization, they were looking for energy signatures thousands of times stronger than what most species actually produced. Captain Harrison, Zethkri said carefully, would it be accurate to say that human technology achieves similar results with significantly lower energy requirements? Yes, sir. Energy efficiency has always been a priority in human engineering. Our homeworld has limited energy resources, so we develop technologies that maximize output while minimizing input. Whereas galactic civilizations typically have access to stellar-scale energy sources, Veltar observed, so energy efficiency wasn't a development priority. That explains the detection problem, Harrison said. You're looking for low energy signatures that don't match our search parameters. We're looking for high energy signatures that don't match your operational parameters. Correct, Zethkri confirmed. It also explains your rapid expansion. If your technology operates more efficiently than ours, your ships can travel faster and farther with less resource expenditure. That might explain something else, Harrison added thoughtfully. Our ships have been experiencing better than expected faster than light performance in some regions of space. Are there areas where FTL efficiency has been artificially enhanced? Yes, Vextal replied. Most developed systems have FTL enhancement networks to improve transportation efficiency. Could human ships be benefiting from these networks without realizing it? Possible, Zethkri confirmed. Our FTL enhancement systems are designed to improve all faster-than-light travel in their coverage areas, regardless of the technology being used. That explains our accelerated expansion, Harrison said. We've been unconsciously using galactic infrastructure to improve our travel efficiency. The implications were staggering. Humans had been expanding through galactic space using infrastructure created by civilizations they didn't know existed, achieving expansion rates that seemed impossible based on their own technology alone. Captain Harrison, Zethkri said carefully, this situation requires immediate discussion at the highest levels. Would you be willing to send representatives to the Galactic Council for formal first contact procedures? Absolutely, sir. But, I should warn you, humans don't have a unified government. You'll need to invite representatives from multiple political entities. Multiple political entities? Yes, sir. Humanity is organized into approximately 200 sovereign nations, plus several dozen independent colonies and 3 major corporate federations. Zethkri's forearms gestured in patterns that conveyed profound shock. 200 sovereign political entities within a single species? Yes, sir. Is that unusual? Most species achieve political unification before developing interstellar capability, Veltar explained. Multiple competing governments typically prevent the resource coordination necessary for space exploration. Humans achieved space exploration through competition rather than cooperation, Harrison explained. Multiple governments and private organizations competing to achieve technological breakthroughs faster than their rivals. You developed interstellar capability through competition? Commander Vextal's mechanical voice carried notes of disbelief. Yes, sir. Private companies competing for mining rights, governments competing for strategic advantages, research institutions competing for scientific prestige. Competition accelerated technological development. But, without unified coordination, how do you prevent conflict and resource waste? We don't, sir. We accept conflict and resource waste as acceptable costs of technological advancement. Silence stretched across space as the galactic representatives tried to process the concept of a species that developed advanced technology through inefficient competition rather than efficient cooperation. Captain Harrison, Zethkri said finally, this conversation has revealed multiple fundamental differences between human civilization and galactic standard models. Formal contact procedures will require extensive preparation. We understand, sir. How would you recommend proceeding? Return to your people. Prepare representatives who can speak for your various political entities. The Council will need time to develop appropriate contact protocols. Yes, sir. And, Commander Vextal, we'll withdraw from systems you've identified as Dominion territory. Could you provide coordinates for systems that aren't claimed by any galactic civilization? Unknown, Vextal replied. Territorial claims are classified information. You would need Council approval to access galactic territorial databases. I see. In that case, we'll suspend expansion activities until territorial boundaries can be established through formal negotiations. Suspend expansion? Veltar gasped. You're willing to halt your entire interstellar program based on a single conversation? Yes, ma'am. We don't want to cause conflicts through misunderstandings. We prefer cooperation to confrontation whenever possible. Zethkri felt the universe shift one more time. A species that had achieved rapid galactic expansion through competitive technological development was willing to suspend that expansion to avoid diplomatic conflict. It was exactly the opposite of every predictive model in galactic databases. Captain Harrison, your people continue to surprise us. Thank you, sir. We've learned that the universe is full of surprises. The discovery of galactic civilization is just the latest one. As the human ships began withdrawing from the Proxima sector, dismantling their communication interfaces and leaving the Dominion battle group free to maneuver, Zethkri realized that everything had changed. The galaxy had encountered a species that defied every assumption about technological development, territorial expansion, and diplomatic relations. The real challenge was just beginning. 6 months after the first contact incident in the Proxima sector, the Galactic Council chambers had been reconfigured to accommodate the most unprecedented diplomatic gathering in recorded history. Representatives from 47 galactic civilizations sat alongside delegates from over 200 human political entities, creating a cacophony of translation algorithms and diplomatic protocols that strained even the Council's advanced systems. Ambassador Zethkri stood at the central podium, his forearms weaving patterns that conveyed both welcome and profound unease. In the months since contact, human expansion hadn't stopped, it had accelerated beyond all previous measurements. More troubling, other galactic civilizations had begun reporting impossible technological developments in systems where humans had established presence. Honored delegates, Zethkri began, his voice carrying through quantum resonance translators that had been hastily modified to handle human linguistic complexity. We gather to address the most significant development in galactic history since the formation of the Council itself. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the elected spokesperson for the Earth Coalition, floated in her environmental suit beside the podium. Human physiology couldn't handle the council chamber's atmospheric mixture, but their insistence on attending in person had impressed even the most skeptical alien delegates. The phenomenon we must address, Zethkri continued, extends beyond diplomatic contact. In the 6 months since humans began cooperating with galactic civilizations, we have documented technological advancements that challenge our understanding of physical law itself. Queen Exasesthera's compound eyes reflected holographic displays showing impossible engineering projects across dozens of star systems. Show them the Kepler station data. The chamber's central display activated, showing a massive space habitat under construction in the Kepler 442 system. The structure defied conventional physics, it was too large to maintain structural integrity, yet it clearly existed and functioned normally. The Kepler station, Dr. Vasquez explained, is a joint project between the Human Colonial Administration and the Resonant Crystal Collective. We're combining human environmental modification techniques with resonant harmonic engineering. Commander Vextal's scales shifted to deep purple as he processed the implications. Dr. Vasquez, that structure has an internal volume exceeding most planetary habitats. The gravitational stresses alone should cause catastrophic collapse. They would, Dr. Vasquez agreed, if we were using conventional structural engineering. But the resonance showed us how harmonic resonance can distribute gravitational forces across crystalline matrices. We showed them how to modify the matrices for optimal human habitat requirements. Harmonic gravitational distribution? Representative Kolnara's biomechanical forms cycle through analysis patterns at maximum speed. That's beyond theoretical possibility. The quantum calculations alone would require computational resources exceeding most civilizations' capabilities. We don't use quantum calculations, Dr. Vasquez replied. We use empirical testing. We build small models, test them until they work, then scale up the designs. Scale up? Admiral Korthal's cybernetic enhancements flickered with alarm codes. You're conducting gravitational engineering experiments without mathematical verification? Mathematical verification comes after empirical success, Dr. Vasquez explained. We've learned that complex systems often work for reasons that mathematics can't predict. So we build working prototypes first, then figure out why they work. Silence stretched through the chamber as delegates processed the concept of conducting massive engineering projects based on experimental success rather than theoretical prediction. Keeper Moldra's energy form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Dr. Vasquez, you're describing a methodology that most galactic civilizations would consider dangerously reckless. With respect, Keeper, most galactic civilizations seem to consider human methodology dangerously reckless. But it works. Does it? Commander Vextal activated tactical displays showing human activities across multiple sectors. Explained the quantum communication anomalies. The holographic display shifted to show communication networks that spanned hundreds of light-years, transmitting data at rates that exceeded theoretical maximums for quantum entanglement systems. We call it the mesh, explained Dr. James Liu, the human delegate representing the Corporate Federation. It's a hybrid of human quantum entanglement technology and ethereal dimensional phase communication. The gaseous ethereals flickered with colors indicating surprise and concern. Their spokesperson, a cloud of luminous particles that maintained roughly humanoid shape, spoke through harmonic vibrations that the translation system converted to audible speech. Dimensional phase communication requires precise energy balance across multiple reality layers, the ethereal explained. Human quantum systems operate at energy levels too low to achieve stable dimensional interface. Correct, Dr. Liu agreed. So we modified your dimensional phase technology to work with our low-energy quantum systems. The result is communication that's faster than your original system but uses 90% less power. Impossible, the ethereal replied, their luminous form flickering rapidly. Dimensional phase communication cannot function below critical energy thresholds. Physical law prevents energy reduction without efficiency loss. We changed the physical laws, Dr. Liu said simply. The chamber erupted in urgent conversations as delegates struggled to process the implications. The translation systems overloaded briefly as 47 species attempted to express concepts of impossibility simultaneously. Changed the physical laws? Keeper Muldra's energy form brightened with intense interest. Explain this process. We discovered that dimensional phase communication works by creating small tears in spacetime, Dr. Liu explained. Your technology maintains stable tears through continuous high-energy input. We learned to create self-healing tears that maintain stability through quantum feedback loops rather than energy input. Self-healing dimensional tears? Representative Kolnara's biomechanical components were cycling through analysis patterns so rapidly they were generating heat signatures. That's not modification of existing technology. That's invention of entirely new physics. No ma'am, Dr. Liu corrected. It's application of existing physics in ways that weren't previously explored. The quantum feedback principles were already known. We just applied them to dimensional engineering. Ambassador Zethkri's ancient features reflected growing concern. Dr. Liu, are you saying humans are solving advanced physics problems by applying basic principles and new combinations? Yes, sir. Most human technological development works that way. We take simple, well-understood principles and combine them in ways nobody has tried before. But, without mathematical modeling, how do you predict whether these combinations will work or cause catastrophic failure? We test them carefully, Dr. Liu replied. Small scale first, then, gradually increase the size and complexity until we understand the limits. You experimentally probe the limits of physics through trial and error? Queen Xsestera's mandibles clicked with agitation. That could destabilize entire star systems if you make a mistake. We've considered that possibility, Dr. Vasquez interjected. That's why we always conduct initial experiments in uninhabited systems, with extensive safety protocols and emergency containment procedures. Emergency containment procedures for physics experiments? Admiral Corthal's mechanical voice carried notes of disbelief. What kind of containment can protect against fundamental force destabilization? Dimensional isolation chambers, Dr. Liu explained matter-of-factly. If an experiment starts destabilizing local spacetime, we use controlled dimensional tears to isolate the affected region until the destabilization decays naturally. Controlled dimensional tears for experimental containment? The ethereal spokesperson's luminous form was flickering so rapidly it was becoming difficult to maintain coherent shape. That technology doesn't exist. The energy requirements would exceed stellar output. Not if you use quantum feedback loops to maintain dimensional stability, Dr. Liu replied. The energy requirements drop to manageable levels once you eliminate the need for continuous power input. Keeper Muldra's energy form was pulsing with what appeared to be excitement mixed with profound unease. Dr. Liu, you're describing technologies that exceed the capabilities of predecessor species artifacts. Who are the predecessor species? Dr. Vasquez asked. The most advanced civilization in galactic history, Zethkri explained. They achieved technologies that modern species still cannot comprehend, then vanished mysteriously approximately 50,000 years ago. What kind of technologies? Gravitational manipulation, time flow modification, dimensional engineering, matter-energy conversion at planetary scales, Queen Xsestera listed. Technologies that modern galactic civilization considers impossible to achieve. Those don't sound impossible, Dr. Liu observed. Gravitational manipulation is just applied general relativity. Time flow modification is spacetime curvature engineering. Dimensional engineering is controlled quantum tunneling. Matter-energy conversion is fusion engineering scaled up. The chamber fell silent as delegates processed the casual dismissal of technologies that galactic civilization had spent millennia trying to understand. Dr. Liu, Commander Vextal said slowly, are you saying humans can duplicate predecessor technologies? I'm saying we can probably figure out how they work and build improved versions. Most advanced technologies are just combinations of basic principles that were applied in clever ways. Improved versions of predecessor artifacts? Representative Kolnara's voice carried notes of shock that overwhelmed her biomechanical translation systems. Those artifacts represent the pinnacle of technological achievement in known space. No offense, Dr. Vasquez said diplomatically, but, from what you've described, predecessor technologies sound inefficient. They apparently required enormous energy inputs and specialized materials. Human engineering philosophy emphasizes efficiency and resource optimization. You believe you can improve upon technologies that surpass galactic civilization's capabilities? Admiral Corthal asked. We believe we can learn from them and develop more efficient approaches, Dr. Liu corrected. That's how human technology usually advances. We study existing solutions, understand the underlying principles, then develop better implementations. Zethkri felt the familiar sensation of the universe shifting around him. In 6 months, humans had gone from unknown primitives to casual dismissal of technologies that galactic civilization revered as impossible achievements. Perhaps, he suggested carefully, we should discuss specific examples of human-alien technological collaboration. Dr. Vasquez activated her personal holographic display, showing projects across dozens of star systems. The Synthesis Collective has been working with our biotechnology specialists to develop self-repairing spacecraft materials. Traditional galactic materials require periodic replacement. Our bioengineered materials continuously repair damage and adapt to changing environmental conditions. Representative Kolnara's biomechanical form was processing this information with visible strain. Self-repairing spacecraft materials? That would revolutionize interstellar transportation. It already has, Dr. Liu added. Human ships using bioengineered materials have operational lifespans 5 to 10 times longer than conventional vessels. Maintenance requirements have dropped by 90%. What about the Dominion collaboration? Commander Vextal asked, his scales shifting to colors that indicated grudging curiosity mixed with concern. Mobile infrastructure optimization, Dr. Vasquez replied. Dominion military doctrine emphasizes rapidly deployable assets. We've helped them develop infrastructure that can be assembled, disassembled, and relocated in hours rather than months. Hours? Vextal's mechanical voice carried notes of disbelief. Dominion fortress construction requires minimum 3 months for basic deployment. Traditional construction, yes, Dr. Liu agreed. But, we introduced modular engineering principles and automated assembly systems. Now Dominion fortresses can be deployed in 6 hours and relocated in 4. 6-hour fortress deployment? Queen Exesestera's compound eyes were cycling through focus patterns that indicated severe cognitive strain. That would revolutionize military strategy across the galaxy. It already has, Admiral Corthal admitted reluctantly. Hegemony strategic planning has been completely revised. Traditional siege tactics are obsolete against infrastructure that can relocate faster than attack fleets can position. Keeper Moldra's energy form was pulsing with patterns that indicated deep contemplation. The changes extend beyond individual technologies. Human collaboration is altering the fundamental parameters of galactic civilization. How? Dr. Vasquez asked. Energy efficiency improvements have reduced resource requirements across multiple species, the Keeper explained. Construction time reductions have accelerated infrastructure development. Communication enhancements have improved coordination between previously isolated civilizations. That sounds positive, Dr. Liu observed. It is, Zethkri agreed. But, it's also unprecedented. The rate of change is exceeding galactic civilization's ability to adapt. Adaptation challenges? Dr. Vasquez's voice carried notes of concern. Are we causing problems we should address? Unknown, Queen Exesestera replied honestly. Galactic civilization has existed for over 30,000 years with gradual, predictable technological advancement. In 6 months, humans have introduced changes that exceed the previous millennium of development. Should we slow down? Dr. Liu asked. Can you? Commander Vextal replied. Human expansion continues to accelerate. New colonies, new projects, new technological collaborations appear weekly. Even if your representatives agreed to reduced activity, could your various governments and organizations implement such agreements? Dr. Vasquez and Dr. Liu exchanged glances. The question struck at the heart of human political complexity that galactic civilizations still struggle to understand. Probably not, Dr. Vasquez admitted. Human civilization operates through voluntary cooperation rather than central control. We can make recommendations, but implementation depends on individual decisions by hundreds of separate entities. So human technological development is not controlled by any central authority? Representative Kolnara asked. Correct, Dr. Liu confirmed. Research and development happen through competition between universities, corporations, government agencies, and private individuals. Nobody has authority to stop technological advancement. That's chaotic, Admiral Corthell observed. It's also unstoppable, Dr. Vasquez replied. Human technological development is driven by curiosity, competition, and survival pressure. As long as humans exist, they'll continue developing new technologies. Silence stretched through the chamber as delegates contemplated the implications. Galactic civilization was dealing with a species whose technological advancement couldn't be controlled, predicted, or stopped. Perhaps, Keeper Muldra suggested, the question isn't how to control human technological development. Perhaps the question is how to adapt galactic civilization to accommodate accelerated change. Adaptation strategies? Seth Cree asked. Flexible institutional structures, the Keeper replied. Traditional galactic governance assumes gradual, predictable change. Human presence requires governance systems that can respond to rapid, unpredictable developments. What kind of governance systems? Queen XSS Thera asked. Unknown, Muldra admitted. This situation is unprecedented in galactic history. We need new approaches. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward in her environmental suit. May I suggest something? Human civilization has extensive experience managing rapid technological change and social adaptation. Perhaps we could share our experience with institutional flexibility. Human institutional structures could be adapted for galactic civilization? Representative Kolnara asked. Some principles might transfer, Dr. Liu replied. Human institutions emphasize distributed decision-making, voluntary cooperation, and competitive development. These approaches handle rapid change better than centralized control systems. Voluntary cooperation? Commander Vextal's scale shifted to patterns indicating confusion. How do you maintain civilization without central authority enforcing cooperation? Through mutual benefit, Dr. Vasquez explained. Human institutions succeed when they provide benefits that outweigh costs. Cooperation happens because people choose to cooperate, not because they're forced to. But, without enforcement mechanisms, what prevents conflict and resource competition? Conflict and resource competition happen, Dr. Liu admitted. But, we've learned that voluntary cooperation produces better results than forced cooperation. People who choose to work together work more efficiently than people who are forced to work together. Zethkri's forearms gestured in patterns that conveyed deep thoughtfulness. Dr. Vasquez, are you suggesting that galactic civilization could benefit from adopting human organizational principles? I'm suggesting that some human organizational principles might help galactic civilization adapt to accelerated technological change, Dr. Vasquez replied diplomatically. But, implementation would depend on whether galactic species found these approaches beneficial. What would implementation involve? Queen XSS Thera asked. Distributed decision-making, Dr. Liu explained. Instead of central authorities making decisions for entire civilizations, local groups make decisions for their specific situations. Central coordination provides information and resources, but doesn't control local implementation. Competitive development, Dr. Vasquez added. Instead of preventing technological advancement to maintain stability, encourage technological advancement through competition. Let different groups develop different solutions, then, adopt the solutions that work best. Voluntary cooperation, Dr. Liu continued. Instead of enforcing cooperation through authority, Encourage cooperation through mutual benefit. Make cooperation more profitable than conflict. Admiral Corthell was processing tactical implications through his cybernetic systems. These approaches would fundamentally change galactic civilization's power structure. Traditional authorities would lose control over technological development and resource allocation. Not lose control, Dr. Vasquez corrected. Change the nature of control. Instead of controlling through authority, control through providing better options. Leadership through service rather than leadership through power. Leadership through service? Representative Kulnara's biomechanical form was cycling through analysis patterns that generated unusual harmonic resonances. Explain this concept. Leaders succeed by helping their followers succeed, Dr. Liu explained. Instead of extracting resources from followers, leaders provide resources to followers. The most successful leaders are the ones who make their followers most successful. That inverts traditional power relationships, Keeper Muldra observed. It makes power relationships more efficient, Dr. Vasquez replied. Leaders who help their followers succeed have more successful followers. More successful followers provide more resources and support to their leaders. But this system depends on voluntary participation, Commander Vextal pointed out. What happens when participants choose not to cooperate? They become less successful than participants who do cooperate, Dr. Liu answered. Natural selection favors cooperation over conflict when cooperation produces better results. And, when conflict produces better results than cooperation, then conflict happens, Dr. Vasquez admitted. But human experience suggests that cooperation usually produces better results than conflict, especially in technological development. Zethkri felt the universe shifting again, but this time the change felt less like disruption and more like opportunity. Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Liu, are you proposing that galactic civilization adopt human organizational principles as an experimental governance model? We're suggesting that galactic civilization might benefit from experimenting with governance approaches that handle rapid change more effectively, Dr. Vasquez replied carefully. Whether those approaches happen to be human approaches or entirely new approaches is less important than finding approaches that work. But implementation would require unprecedented cooperation between species with fundamentally different social structures, Queen Xsestera observed. Implementation would require voluntary cooperation, Dr. Liu corrected. Species that find these approaches beneficial can adopt them. Species that don't find them beneficial can continue using traditional approaches. Let competitive development determine which approaches work better. Competition between governance systems? Admiral Corthell's cybernetic enhancements were processing scenarios at maximum capacity. That could destabilize galactic civilization if some approaches prove significantly more effective than others. Or it could improve galactic civilization by identifying and spreading the most effective approaches, Dr. Vasquez replied. Human civilization has benefited enormously from competition between different governance approaches. Democracy, free markets, scientific research, technological development, all improved through competitive testing of alternative methods. Keeper Muldra's energy form was pulsing with patterns that indicated intense contemplation. The proposal has merit, but implementation risks are significant. Rapid change could exceed adaptation capacity for species with slower decision-making processes. Then, perhaps implementation should be gradual and voluntary, Dr. Liu suggested. Start with species and organizations that are already comfortable with rapid change. Let them experiment with new approaches and demonstrate results. Other groups can observe and adopt successful innovations at their own pace. Voluntary experimentation with gradual expansion, Zethkri mused. That approach might minimize risks while maximizing learning opportunities. It would also allow different species to develop approaches that suit their specific needs, Dr. Vasquez added. Human organizational principles work for humans, but other species might develop better approaches that work for their specific biology and culture. Competitive development of governance.